Today, on the spooky Halloween special, we're going to be talking about the top 10 monsters and the fears they symbolically represent. And wow, you guys look great today. I love your costumes. Robot, your predator looks amazing.
I look great.
You look great.
I win Halloween this year.
You did. You outdid yourself.
Number one, totally better than Space Brain's costume.
All right, well, it's not a competition.
It is a competition, actually.
Well, it's not, but you guys did both a great job. Space Brain, I love your costume.
Oh, thank you. You noticed.
I did.
You noticed that I wore a costume this year. It's my first Halloween.
I know, I'm so excited for you. I love Halloween, so I love sharing it with an interdimensional species. I think that's really cool. I mean, I want to share it with Europe and like...
Yes, not many other planets have Halloween, so I was really excited to come here and participate.
So, Space Brain, I have to ask, did you choose to be Dr. Ian Malcolm this year because you know that I have a crush on Jeff Goldblum?
Well, you know, I'm always on the lookout for a future ex-Mrs. Malcolm.
Well,
It sounds like Space Brain is trying to flirt with you or something.
I'm not flirting. I don't even know how to do that.
that's true.
How do we know Space Brain's not a sexual predator?
What?
He could be the Harvey Weinstein of his planet.
Oh my gosh, that's too far. He's not the Harvey Weinstein of his dimension.
Oh yeah? I've seen how those googly eyes look at you.
He's
a peeper.
They don't even...
We should be watching out for him.
He doesn't even have a gender. It's not like that. He's non-binary. Isn't that right, Space Brain?
Well, you know what Jeff Goldblum says. Life finds a way. Rawr.
Oh my gosh, he's flirting with you. Oh, gross.
Well, it's working.
What?
So now on to our top 10 monsters. I think that there's a lot of wisdom that can be gleaned from the darker places in our psyches, and that a lot of our monsters are teachers in a lot of ways.
Monsters are teachers.
Yeah, they symbolize basic fears that we have. Like, why do we keep seeing vampires? You know, every decade we have new vampire movies. They're constantly updated. What is it about them that makes them so iconic and lasting in our subconscious? Like, why do we keep making movies about these creatures?
I don't know.
Well, that's okay, because I'm going to tell you, all right, what my interpretation of why we see these monsters over and over again. Some of the monsters on this list are more modern monsters, and some of them have been in the human psyche for hundreds of years.
What makes them stick around?
Well, I think that these monsters stick around because they are talking about a fear that we still have today, that we're still grappling with. And if you look at all of the monsters, you come to notice that they really are just these reflections of ourselves.
This is really interesting.
Well, thank you, Space Brain. I think so too.
Okay, this whole thing sounds a little fishy, but let's just get into it. Number one monster is what?
In no particular order, let's start with zombies. As the years have gone by, I've noticed that zombies have gone from being a more underground horror monster to being like one of the top monsters that we see the most in pop culture. Like, they've really popped off in the last like 5 years or so, or maybe even a little bit longer than that. And it's just like, there used to be barely any zombie shit, and now everywhere you turn, it's like zombie everything. It's interesting. I mean, my mom is huge with zombies. She loves The Walking Dead. You know, it's something that your parents are into.
Moms love zombies now.
And let's look at what a zombie is. It is a reanimated dead corpse who is completely mindless, and all it wants to do is consume other brains and create more zombies. And all they do is consume, but they don't give back in any way.
Zombies just consume.
Yeah, they're mindless consumers. And so I think that the rise of zombies is absolutely a reaction to the rise of capitalism and the fears that we have of people becoming these mindless consumers who don't contribute back to their society.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
And I can't help but wonder if the rise of zombies is a reflection of the rise of capitalism, you know, and that we have like the most mindless consumerism we've ever had. And so that's why zombies are so hot right now. There's a reason that George Romero set Dawn of the Dead in a shopping mall. That's a mecca of mindless consumerism. And even though I love the mall, I'm a mall rat, I totally see what he's talking about.
So, Comic Book Girl, are you trying to say that there's a connection between the rise of zombies in popular culture and the rise of mindless consumerism?
Yes, I think there's a direct correlation there. I mean, if you look at it, like, zombies really became popular in the 80s. And the 80s is when everyone started getting these credit cards and they were just like all about going, shopping. And it was like a whole thing. It was this big boom in American societies.
What's materialism?
Well, materialism is when you're obsessed with having like physical things, like cool clothes and a cool car and like, kind of surfacey stuff. House, picket fence, jewels. What our entire capitalistic society is built upon.
That's silly. Zombies are just zombies. And that's it. Period.
Well, I mean, you can think that if you want.
Teacher, what's your favorite zombie movie?
I really love Dead Alive. That's my favorite zombie movie for sure.
Next biggest monster. Werewolves.
Werewolves. Well,
And don't try to tell me werewolves mean anything.
they totally mean something. Werewolves are people who, when the moon is full, they turn into a wolf-like creature, lose control over themselves, and go on killing sprees. And then they wake up and they have no idea what happened. They're like, I don't really remember.
So what do werewolves represent in the human psyche?
Well, I feel that werewolves represent a fear of losing control over oneself and reverting to one's bestial nature.
Bestial nature?
Yeah.
What's that?
Your bestial nature is where you lose your civility. I mean, you're just concerned about, life and death. There's no in between. You're the hunter or the hunted.
Your lowest self?
Your lowest self, yeah.
What is it?
Well, we've all been in those situations where we've been like really stressed out and then our emotions start taking over. Our higher functions go by the wayside. We're completely acting on fear and we lash out and we generally like do or say something that is like we really regret later, that was like really over the top, very violent or mean, hurtful, destructive.
And that's what werewolves do?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I've done that before.
And I think that werewolves are more of a masculine fear because, men have this very aggressive side to themselves and they have to keep it in check. And so a werewolf is like a man who can't keep it in check. And he not only lets it out, like he just becomes a beast, like when it comes out.
When he gets really angry?
Yeah, and werewolves are kind of like, dudes who have periods. Like if dudes had a period and then they like went nuts and their hormones went nuts, like that's kind of what would happen.
A werewolf is a dude with a period.
Yeah, because it happens every 28 days. It's a cycle. And that's what happens to women. Like, we get, like, hormones, and we're, like, fucking crazy, Like, I cry. It's just, I get upset. I get stressed out.
A werewolf is a dude with a period.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's...
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's the fear of, having that period.
What are you, crazy? No. I'm just marking my territory.
I sure do hope that one day I'm able to lose control and have my emotions take over so that I could fully engage in the human experience.
Well, this reality will test you, and it will do that to you. So don't you worry, Space Brain. Life, finds a way to piss you off.
Comic Book Girl, have you ever turned into a werewolf, metaphorically speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely been times where I have gotten really upset, and I just want to strangle someone to death or rip their throat out. Just do something awful. Just awful. But it's not cool. You can't do that.
Fight it out?
Yeah, actually, I have imagined how pleasurable it would be to bite out someone's neck and have them bleed to death. I've thought about that. But that's more really of my vampire side coming out.
Well, you know what I think.
What?
Werewolves are just werewolves. And that's it.
Period.
Comic Book Girl, what's your favorite werewolf movie?
Well, obviously American Werewolf in London is like the classic, like the go-to, but I really also like Ginger Snaps. I think that one is definitely worth checking out. It's got these two sisters. One of them turns into a werewolf.
I'm not dying!
Number 3 biggest monster. Is that what we're doing?
I mean, there's no rating here. They're just,
But we're gonna end with a top 10 #1 biggest monster of all time.
sure. Next up, let's talk about Dr. Frankenstein's monster.
Don't you just mean Frankenstein?
Well, no, it's Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein is the name of the scientist, not the actual creature that he created. It's a misnomer. But we just call him Frankenstein's because...
So what do Frankensteins do?
So, the story of Frankenstein's monster comes from the year 1818. It was published, written by Mary Shelley. And this novel was written in response to the rise of science. It was written during the Age of Enlightenment, when science was on the rise and we had had this taste of the power of science.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so in this novel, you have a scientist who wants to create man, his own man, from corpses. He finds all the most beautiful pieces he can, he puts them all together, and wants to create his own Adam. He's playing God, and so he reanimates this being.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
And when he does, when he looks into its eyes, all of a sudden he sobers up and sees what he's done, and he's terrified by what he's done, and he rejects his creation.
Oh my gosh.
And this poor creature goes off into the world without anybody to help him, and he's got to learn everything on his own, and he becomes very bitter towards his creator and comes back and haunts his creator, ended up killing his fiancée.
Oh my. Why did Dr. Frankenstein choose to do such a thing?
Dr. Victor Frankenstein did this out of hubris.
So then it sounds like what you're saying is that Dr. Frankenstein was so preoccupied with whether or not he could that he didn't stop to think of whether or not he should.
Yes, that is 100% correct. You get a star. It's perfect, Space Brain. You're killing it today.
Oh, thank you.
So lame.
So you could say that Frankenstein's monster symbolically represents a fear of the abuse of the awesome power of science and the fallout of playing God. And fun fact, when the book was originally published, it was published under the title Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus.
What's a Prometheus?
Well, Prometheus is a god who gave fire to man against the other gods' wishes. They did not want us to have that shit. And when he gave it to us, that was a huge scientific advancement for us. I mean, civilizations were started. We got out of caves because of fire. And what Mary Shelley is saying, that if science has the power over life and death, I mean, that's like the new fire. That would take us into a whole new stratosphere.
And humans are the new gods.
And that's why the gods didn't want humans to have fire, because we would become more like them. And that's why Prometheus was punished for what he did, just like Victor Frankenstein is punished for what he did.
No, that's not it.
What do you think he means?
Frankensteins are just Frankensteins. And that's it. Period.
Is that what we're just gonna keep doing this? Is this what we're doing today?
You're the one that chose this topic, not me.
You're right.
Comic Book Girl, what's your favorite Frankenstein movie?
Well, I'm not saying this is a good Frankenstein movie, but my favorite Frankenstein movie is I, Frankenstein.
What? Why?
I don't know why I like it. It's just the perfect amount of cheese, and everyone's just so committed to their roles, and it's so absurd, and it's perfect, and I love it.
Is that really a good movie that represents Frankensteins, though?
No, not at all. But it's fun, and it's,
I suppose the next thing you're going to tell me is that ghosts mean something.
Okay, well, ghosts absolutely mean something.
Oh, gosh.
Ghosts are scary to me.
Well, ghosts are absolutely some of our most ancient monsters on our list. I mean, they date back to pre-literate cultures.
Oh my gosh.
And ghosts are spirits of the dead. There are these ethereal beings that remain as manifestations in our reality after they should have passed on.
And that's where ghosts come from?
Yes, ghosts are the spirits of dead people, sometimes dead animals, that have continued to linger on. They're still in this existence. Sometimes they haunt a specific place or a specific object.
So what do ghosts mean?
So what I believe that ghosts represent is unresolved issues that continue to linger. The thing about ghosts is that they generally have some sort of unresolved issue, and that's why they have not passed on to the other side. They feel like they don't have completion, and so they're caught in these loops, trying to figure out this problem,
Like they're caught in a loop.
Yeah, caught in a loop. Because they do the same things, you see the ghost, on the bridge, and it's like they're always walking, and then they'll get in the car, and it's like this whole pattern that they continue to repeat.
So what does that mean?
I take ghosts to symbolize a fear of having some problem in your life that you can't solve, that you're doomed to repeat over and over again.
Oh.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a lot of us are caught in loops, just doing the same daily routines over and over again, mindlessly, not even aware of when we started it.
I think that we all have these patterns in our lives, these themes, these loops, if you will, and it's up to you to kind of recognize those things and see the pattern in what you keep doing over and over and over again. And so next time when that comes up to you, you choose a different course of action than you normally do. You're more aware of it.
Wow. Human beings are like ghosts.
Well, we've all got problems we need to solve. That's why ghosts are so universal, and that's why they've continued to linger in our media, in our stories, in our fiction. And people do claim that they see ghosts. There are ghost sightings. I haven't personally seen a ghost. I don't know.
I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, I think that anything's possible, I've definitely been in places like weird negative zones where you're like, the energy in here is really fucked up and weird. So, I believe that, I don't know, there could be some sort of transference of spirit, or like there's some like emotion that's like really crazy, and then I don't know. I totally believe it can happen. But I also believe that I grew up in a haunted house where somebody shot themselves in the fucking head, and like that just lingered. That feeling of like getting energy sucked out of you was just lingered there forever.
You grew up in a house that someone committed suicide in?
Yeah, I did. Didn't know that until after my parents bought the house. Didn't tell them. Yeah, it's really creepy.
What's your favorite ghost movie?
Oh, there's so many really great ghost movies. Obviously you have The Shining, like that's such a classic. I also really like The Grudge. That's a great Japanese ghost story. The Legend of Hell House is it's from the 60s. I really like it, but I'd want to like remake it because the book is like
boring.
Really fucking scary. The book is like, oh my God, it should totally be remade. And one of my guilty pleasures is House on Haunted Hill, the remake that was made in like 2000 or 99 or something. And it was like, the ending, it really falls apart in the end, but it has such I really like it. I like what it was trying to do.
Kind of like you like The Room?
Yeah, well, I have my guilty pleasures, and there's movies that definitely are very flawed movies that there's just parts of them that really shine and outshine all the shittiness.
Number 5, biggest monster. Now we're going to talk about Godzilla. Godzilla is a giant dinosaur sea monster creature, and he shoots fire out of his mouth, and he has fins on his back that light up when he shoots fire out, and he attacks and destroys cities like Tokyo and New York, and he fights other giant monsters.
Well, what do you think that he represents?
Dinosaurs are awesome.
Well, not quite. That's not what I would interpret.
Well, what do you think, Smarty Pants?
Well, so Godzilla came out in 1954. This is one of our most modern monsters on our list, right? This was 9 years after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 during World War II. And this is the first time the world witnessed the destructive power of nuclear force. Entire cities were destroyed. And obviously, this experience scared the shit out of the Japanese people. It scared the shit out of anybody. And so their reaction to this was Godzilla. And Godzilla is, his origins vary. There's a lot of different movies. But generally speaking, Godzilla is like this prehistoric sea monster who has been awakened by nuclear radiation, by these nuclear bombs. And not only that, he's been souped up by them. He has nuclear powers now, and so he comes out of the ocean and he destroys these cities, so he thereby represents man's fear of the awesome destructive force of nuclear power. So that one's pretty easy.
Well, what about Mothra then?
Well, Godzilla did spawn a whole bunch of other kaiju, and, he just had to have some other monsters to fight, and so it's just fun to see giant monsters fight each other. And that's it.
And that's it?
Period.
What's your favorite Godzilla movie?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not a huge Godzilla fan.
Mine is Godzilla 1985.
I don't really have a favorite Godzilla movie, but I know which one I don't like the most, and that's the 1998 Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie. That one should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah.
It was a boo.
Well, you gotta be kidding me, man. We're in a spot.
Number 5 biggest monster is Mummies. Mummies.
Yes, let's talk about mummies.
Mummies.
They're another one of our more modern monsters. The first mummy movie was in 1932 with Boris Karloff, Universal Pictures. And I think this movie is inspired by this huge European fascination in Egypt, Egyptology and archaeology that was going on in the 1920s. There was this Neo-Egyptian revival where everybody was super into it. King Tut's tomb was found in 1922. It really opened up everyone's imagination. And so mummies, classically, you have these, royal dead who have preserved their bodies, and they have these tombs that are filled with these riches. And these riches all have things that help them in their afterlife. It's part of their funerary rites. And if these objects are disturbed, and if their tomb is disturbed, then a curse will be set upon you, and then the mummy comes back to life, and it tries to fuck your shit up.
That's what mummies are after?
Well, and also sometimes there's you read a scroll, somebody reads something, and then that brings it back to life. There's that aspect of it too. But generally speaking, mummies are upset that you have plundered their tomb, and they're out for revenge.
Mummies are after that gold.
Well, mummies represent a fear of the consequences for disrespecting the past.
Oh.
So all these, Egyptologists, these archaeologists from Britain and from America, went over. They uncovered these tombs. They plundered these national treasures of Egypt and just took them and appropriated them. And as part of the Western trend of colonialism, where one country kind of takes over another country because they're more advanced technologically speaking and politically speaking, and then they just do whatever they want.
And that's bad?
I mean, you're not supposed to go into somebody else's shit and just take it because you're stronger than them.
But somebody buried gold underground. Perfectly good gold.
Yeah, and, that's their gold. And so, I mean, on the one hand, it's also science is we need to learn. We can learn so much from this, and I totally understand and respect that part of it. But a lot of it was also about making a name for yourself. And a lot of them do just take shit and make money off of it and auction it, and there's a whole dark side to that whole thing.
So that's why we still have mummies?
Yeah, because mummies come to life and come after you after you take their shit. You steal their stuff, you disrespect their whole deal, and then you're gonna go make a big name for yourself or make a bunch of money, and then they're super mad, and so they're gonna fuck you up.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's a fear of that. It's a fear of going into some other, culture, into the past, messing with it, taking it, not respecting another culture, and then it coming to bite you in the ass. Because we always know that there's a consequence for everything that you do.
Oh, I never thought about mummies like that.
Yeah. So they represent a manifestation of that fear.
Teacher, what's your favorite mummy movie?
Okay, well, this is a really stupid mummy movie, but I like it. It's called Time Walker, and it came out in 1982, and it's about this mummy, but he's really an alien, and he's still alive, and so they don't know that he's an alien. There's these crystals, and all these people take these crystals, and he goes and kills everybody and takes the crystals back.
A mummy alien?
Yeah, that's really
Oh my
stupid.
gosh. I've
Yeah.
got next year's Halloween costume planned.
It was featured in Mystery Science Theater 3000, so.
Whoa, an asparagus monster!
That necklace didn't have a very good clasp.
Number 4 biggest monster is witches.
Witches. Yeah, witches are hot right now.
Witches.
Well, witches are real easy, and witches have been around for a long time. This is another one of our more ancient monsters.
What do witches mean?
What is a witch? It is a woman who has magical powers and uses them on other people, to hex them, curse them, whatever she wants to do, anything she wants to do. She has got magic powers and she can use them.
And she has a pot and stirs it up and sometimes eats children in the pot.
Yeah, they do all sorts of things.
And they fly on brooms.
Yeah, they can fly on brooms. They're generally depicted as ugly. They generally have black cats. They have cats, familiars.
So what does a witch represent metaphorically to the human psyche?
Well, Space Brain, witches represent the fear of an empowered woman. Man's fear of a woman who has power, so much power that she doesn't have to have a husband. I mean, none of the witches are never married. I mean, it's very rare to hear about a witch who's married in a story. Like, they're always live by themselves. They're self-sufficient. They live on the woods by their own. They don't need anybody, you know. They have all this power. And that's just what it is men being afraid of women who don't need men and who are empowered. And I think it's really interesting that right now you see a resurgence of witches. That's a big thing. I think there's a lot. Like, I have never seen so much witch wear, like, in my life. Like, fashion-wise, like, I can go out and buy so much goth, witchy-looking stuff with, like, pentagrams all over it and, like, Baphomets and, like, all this shit, arcane symbols.
So you're saying witches are hot right now?
They're super hot right now. It's super hot right now. You know, the repressed feminine is coming forth and witches are hot. And I think it's very empowering for a lot of young women. You know, I think it's a good archetype to kind of delve into in yourself. Like, what are your witchy powers, you know? Because women, we do have these instincts. We have these intuitions and these gut instincts, and they are right, and you have to learn to listen to them, and that is part of your magic as a woman. You know, we are these magical creatures. Parts of us are. But we're also, you know, human beings at the end of the day, too. But you got to find a way to balance those. And witches are really special on our list because they are the monsters that have at some points been considered real. People have been accused and convicted of being witches and then burned for it in our reality. There's a lot of reasons for this. Part of it is a fear of the other, you know? I mean, there might be a woman on the edge of town who didn't prescribe to all of the religious things that were going on in her village, and she was, like, delving into herbs and shit like that, and somebody didn't like her for whatever reason. Maybe she rebuffed somebody, and they're like, oh, she's a witch. And then, you know, the institution comes down on her. There's also, like, say, you know, a woman had some sort of property or something came to her, and somebody wanted that. If you accuse her of being a witch, all their property goes to whomever, so there's that whole aspect of it. There's some shady shit there. And it's all about control over women is really what it boils down to.
What's your favorite witch movie?
Well,
Are there witch movies?
There's a lot of witch movies. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's so many witch movies that I love. I mean, there's The Witches when I was growing up, the Ronald Dahl one. There's also The Craft. I mean, I was so influenced by that. But recently, I just discovered Ken Russell's The Devils. And man, that is a really fucked up witch movie.
What happens there?
So you have this priest played by Oliver Reed, and he's kind of a bad priest. He's been like fucking all these chicks, and he like pisses all these other dudes off, and he gets this one girl pregnant. And so the aristocrat wants to get this guy, like, he wants to fucking get revenge on this motherfucker. And so he gets the church behind him, and it's like, hey, let's accuse this guy of turning all these nuns into witches, and then, you know, we can fuck his shit up. And so it's really, like, fascinating because it talks about why people are really accused of being witches, which is for these fucked up other reasons that have nothing to do with witchcraft.
And what form does this incubus take?
Number 2 biggest monster, devils and demons. So what does a devil represent?
So the devil, or devils and demons, these are evil entities who come to tempt us. They can even possess us. And these creatures, these entities, come from the Abrahamic religions, from Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And in fact, the word Satan, when you break it down, it means opponent or adversary. And what I think devils and demons really represent is they represent the dark side of ourselves, you know, our shadow selves. When we have our carnal minds, these desires that we have that we feel that we shouldn't have, whether it's greed or lust, you know, any of the 7 deadly sins. And so when you're wrestling with a demon or a devil, you're really wrestling with yourself. You want to do something that you know you shouldn't do, but sometimes you do it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, you know. And so devils and demons are an outward manifestation of that internal struggle.
Remember when Keanu Reeves slept with his sister in The Devil's Apprentice?
Oh, The Devil's Advocate?
The Devil's Advocate?
Yeah. I actually really liked that movie. I thought Al Pacino was a good devil.
He's an absentee landlord. Worship that? Never.
Teacher, what's your favorite demon movie?
Oh gosh, my favorite demon movie. Gosh, there's so many good ones of those. I mean, obviously The Exorcist is a huge one. Rosemary's Baby. I like The Exorcist 3 a lot. I've talked about Exorcist 3 last year.
Number 1, biggest monster.
Vampires.
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 Tell me about vampires.
So vampires are a staple of the horror genre. We see a lot of shows, movies, books, all sorts of things about vampires. And these creatures, these entities, have been recorded in a lot of different cultures. Like, vampiric entities appear in cultures all over the globe. But really, the modern vampire hails from the folklore, from the Eastern European tradition. And specifically, the modern vampire today really has its origins in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the novel that came out in 1897.
That was the first vampire?
I mean, that's not the first vampire novel. In fact, there was a really big one that came out called The Vampire in 1819. So, I mean, and then before that, there was like folklore. So, vampires have been around, but the modern one where they're sophisticated, where they're aristocratic, where they're these pale, gaunt creatures, that comes from Bram Stoker's Dracula, specifically.
And Blade.
Okay, that's a whole different...
Have you seen Blade?
I have. And I really liked it, and I still do. I think it's a good movie.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
And vampires are these undead people who steal the vitality, the energy source, usually in the form of blood, from other beings to sustain itself in this unnatural state. You know, it steals energy from another source just for itself. You know, it's greedy.
Yeah, I already knew that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what you should know that. That's what a vampire is. Another interesting aspect of the modern vampire is that Dracula is Count Dracula. He is an aristocrat. He has a title. He lives in a castle. And so I think that vampires can also represent the lower class's fear of the upper class stealing their vitality to extend their unnatural lives, you know, and how that sucks.
Oh, wow.
I mean, literally sucks, you know. Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying rich people are vampires?
In a way, you could say that. I mean, supposedly, the 8 richest men in the world have, like, the amount of wealth that equals all of the wealth for the bottom 50% of the whole world.
Oh my, that's a lot of money for only 8 people to have.
Yeah. And like, I think that money is very similar to blood. You know, it is this life-giving substance, this vital substance that circulates around, just like blood circulates around. And so it's being, you know, when it's hoarded in one area, like all these other parts of the body start shutting down. Blood needs to be circulated to all systems regularly, or those systems will begin to fail. But vampirism is really at the root about selfishness. You know, it's about greed. It's about extending one's time unnaturally, you know, by taking from others. And it never gives back. And another thing about vampires is you usually see that they're very decadent. You know, they're always very richly dressed, and they want to have these nice goblets that they're drinking blood out of. And, you know, they have this decadence about them that they also represent, which is also goes back to selfishness.
So this is why vampires are popular and have always been around?
Yeah, and it's also talking about people who feel like they can set themselves above natural law. You know, it also has to do with kind of a hubris, but like the price for that. Because everything dies. You know, you cannot live forever.
Teacher, do you think vampires end up happy in the end?
Well, no, they're always miserable. I mean, they're always fucking miserable. I mean, if you have eternal life, you watch all of your friends die, you watch everything change, you just get, I'm sure you're so out of sync with the times, you know? I mean, you're just like, it gets boring, I'm sure. And also, I mean, they're just really surviving to continue to survive. You know, they're not adding things to society. They're not making the world a better place. They're just taking from it in order to continue their own miserable existences because they're afraid of death and they think that they're better than that. It's also about rejecting oneness, you know, it's also about rejecting the divine and turning away from that. And these are all very human failings.
What's your favorite vampire movie?
My favorite vampire movie is Fright Night from, I think, 1985. I love Fright Night. I've seen that movie more than any other movie.
Why?
The thing I love about Fright Night is, A, it has amazing effects. B, I mean, the story is super solid. I love all of the characters. And it also made vampires modern. Before then, you had these 70s vampires who were just like, you know, they had the jewel at the throat and they had the cape and like they were kind of like lame, you know, in the 80s. They're like, oh, vampires, those are stupid. But then these new 80s vampires came in like Near Dark, Fright Night, Lost Boys, and they're like these sexy, cool vampires. You know, you had biker vampires and you have gypsy vampires. And then you had Jerry Dandridge in Fright Night, who's like this yuppie vampire, you know, he's like this super hot guy. So yeah, I don't know, I just love that movie.
So we've talked about a lot of monsters today.
Well, I think that when you take a look at all of the monsters in our culture, you can find that they all are a reflection of the dark sides of ourselves. You know, the monsters are us.
Oh my gosh. You're saying all of the monsters are inside of humanity.
Yes. But they are a external manifestation of an internal conflict. There are philosophical teachers. And I think there's a lot that you can learn from, you know, the darker sides of humanity. I think that's one thing that we don't do as often as we should, is look into the darkness, you know, and try to figure out what the fuck's going on.
So monsters are real.
Yeah, well, we are real. But I don't know, I mean, what is reality, you know? It's plastic.
Stay tuned for next episode when we tackle the Matrix.
Yes, the next time we are doing the Matrix, and we will be questioning the nature of reality a little bit more. I'm really excited to talk about it. Official announcement, Watchmen Club is coming, and there couldn't be a better time.
Why's that?
Because HBO is currently working on a Watchmen television series.
They're making a Watchmen TV show?
Yes. So it is the perfect time for us to be reading Watchmen together for Watchmen Club. The pre-sale for our Watchmen box is going on now.
What's Watchmen Club?
Watchmen Club is where we will be reading 2 issues of Watchmen and dissecting them every week for 6 weeks with thousands of other people around the world talking about Alan Moore's masterwork in comics.
What do we get in Watchmen box if we buy it?
The Watchmen box includes a signed copy of the graphic novel, so you'll have that. It'll also be stamped so everyone will know it's official Watchmen Club copy. We will also be including a Dr. Manhattan Comic Book Girl 19 holographic bookmark so you can keep your place. A silicone bracelet that says Watchmen Club so you can let all your homies know you're in the club. We also have a sticker sheet that has illustrations of all of us as different Watchmen characters.
Oh, sweet.
In Robot, there is an iron-on robot comedian patch of you.
That's gonna be everybody's favorite item.
And a Doomsday Clock enamel pen.
Wow, that's a lot of awesome items.
That is a lot of awesome items. I'm really proud of them. Matthew Skiff designed all of them. They look so amazing. I'm like really happy with them.
Where do we go to get the Watchmen box?
Well, Space Brain, you can go to www.cbg19.bigcartel.com to pick up your Watchmen box. And all of my patrons, Team 19 members, get a $5 off coupon, get a discount code. So if you're in the club.
Why is it a pre-sale?
Well, the pre-sale funds the class. So everybody buying Watchmen boxes helps me be able to take the time to do this class because it is really in-depth, okay, guys? Like, it's not as crazy as Dune Club was, but this shit is intense, all right? This shit is so intense.
Oh no, I better sign up today.
Yeah, you better, because you don't want to get left behind, all right? Because this is a free class. I'm just giving you the supplies that you need, some extra goodies, all right? But I'm doing this because I believe in art, and I believe that reading this will make you, just like Dune, a smarter, better, harder fucking human being. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna know a little bit more about how the world works. We're gonna be even getting into side shit like Shelley's Ozymandias poem, okay? Because there's a character Ozymandias, and if you read the fucking poem, it's like we're gonna make like it's crazy. You're gonna need to read the fucking supplementals in the back of every.
This is gonna be a lot of reading.
It is gonna be a lot of reading, okay? And you're gonna have to read these supplementals at the end, okay? There's pages.
Supplementals? Oh, no.
Pages of stuff at the end. You're gonna have to read all of those. You're not gonna have to read before Watchmen. You're not gonna have to watch the movie. But you are gonna have to read this entire fucking thing.
February seems like a long time away, though.
I know February seems like a long ways away, but it'll be here before you know it. And in fact, it's the best time to read this because, you know, all these holidays in the way with all your family and shit. You know, you gotta have a clear brain to be able to read this and, like, get into it. You gotta invest.
Holidays are a distraction?
Yes, they're very distracting. I find Christmas very distracting. I get very angry and upset. I can't concentrate on Watchmen when Christmas is going. Christmas is, like, the only thing you're allowed to pay attention to.
Well, okay.
And maybe that's a personal problem, I don't know, but it's happening in February, so deal with it.
Well, I can't wait for Christmas to be over then.
I know! Then we can treat ourselves to some Watchmen Club.